Hello, welcome to Star Wars Spelt Out. I'm your host, Josh Chapman, and today we're in the home studio. We've got a returning guest over, well, he's over the Skypes. He's actually moved into the city now since he's last been on, but he's still on the Skypes because, look, you know, driving across town can be a pain in the neck.
Yep.
And we wanted to get this, you know, on wax and get it out as soon as possible. So, returning guest, Paul McWhirter. Hey, man.
G'day, Josh. How you going?
Going good. Thanks for jumping on again.
Very happy
returning
to.
guest.
It's very exciting to be a return guest and to join the Two Timers Club. You know.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the SNL 5 timers. You'll get the jacket when you do
That's
the 5 times.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Well, I better invest in some jackets. I'll have to look into that. I'm not quite sure.
Like, it's close enough that Star Wars Spelt Out should be getting some merch going soon. So maybe there, just a free tee once I hit 5.
Well, I'll look into that. I did think about it because I'm going to Celebration, and I was like, oh, I should take some merch. I should do something, and it's just time. And I was trying to think of something that'd be quite good, that'd be quite unique to take, because everyone's got T-shirts and stuff, and it's cold in Chicago this time of year. And I was almost thinking about, like, you know how they do, like, bands have like the old school footy beanies.
Got a few of those myself. Yep.
Yeah.
And great idea.
Yeah, except I think they're quite
very Australian as well.
Yeah, they're kind of Australian, but they're kind of, you know, cool, and, you know, it's cold. People would probably wear them, but I think I'd have to order like 500, and it's, you know, it's a whole.
And doing that, you'd having to get them over there as well. That's an issue.
And the thing is, I'd kind of like just want to have like 20 that I could just give to people I kind of know.
Yeah,
if I could do like a really small run and take 20, like, here's just a gift. You just, you know, here you go, you have it, or swap for
stuff.
That's
a great idea. That's a great idea.
So I might still look into it. My friend Kate, who's been on the show before, Kate, she was the lady who hadn't seen Force Awakens, and she works in merchandising. Like, she does a whole bunch, like, she does bands and festivals and corporate stuff, and she's involved in all that. So
beautiful.
She's coming back on in the next 2 weeks or so. So she's seeing Last Jedi, and she's coming back with her Last Jedi thoughts.
That's great. That is great. Well, maybe it's time to probe her a little bit.
That's right.
Get an idea.
So, you've moved down south side now. So, Sydney boy, you were talking about it when you were on last time that you were coming down to Melbourne.
Yep.
And there's a different background behind you on the Skype here. I can see a different, you know, looks like a bigger room going on in there.
It looks bigger. But it is definitely a more it's cozier but honestly in like a good sense, because a lot of the time in my old big room there'd just be stuff everywhere. Now I'm more organized because I've got less space, and it feels better.
Have you seen the Marie Kondo show on Netflix? Do you know what I'm talking about?
So yeah, it's so funny because I did a lot of culling just before that came out. So I'm just like, okay, well, I don't want to know about culling because it was so emotionally heavy on me. You know what I mean?
So you already sparked your joy. You already found out what sparks joy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, we're watching it here. Well, luckily we only moved house about a year ago, so we did a lot of culling before we moved. But at the same time, we were watching that, and my partner Kat's like, you could just see the wheels turning in her head. She's just watching, going, "Oh, we could do so much more."
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the other thing. When I moved down to Melbourne, made it easier to cull stuff as well. I just I couldn't bring as much, so I guess I already did a lot of it, and it wasn't so as emotionally taxing because I was moving down here, so there was like a light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Right. And you found it right. It sounds like you've acclimatized pretty well to the city. You've become a Melbourne boy. You've even got a Western Bulldogs hat on, as I can see here.
I do.
Frost, who I do the Pepper podcast with, he's a big Western Bulldogs guy, so he'll be very happy with that.
Fush was a Bulldog supporter. So there you go. Fush, when you come over to Melbourne, we'll go to some games, man.
Are you actually in Footscray?
No. I'm not actually. I'm in Thornbury. So I'm north. North side.
Cool kid.
Well, you know, it's better. I'm not far from Preston, so like once you cross over to Preston, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a way up to it from Thornbury up to Preston. It kind of slowly gets, and I go to the pub up on the corner all the time, and it's just the most bogan thing ever. So it's
dropping the local knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit part of my roots, you know, because I am kind of from Western Sydney. So, you know, going up there, you know, like a taste of home,
See if the UFC's on or something, and
Yeah, I know the TAB's blaring. It's like the horses are on, or the greyhounds or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, this feels like home.
I got a little tear in my eye.
I know it's a bit
a
like
little emotional.
when I see somebody go, yes, like holding up a ticket. It's like, on you, mate. On you, mate.
There's no place like home.
Mhm.
Now, before we go any further, you've just started a new podcast.
I have indeed. It's actually just launched, so we just have a trailer out it's called What's Life, about the great magazine that is That's Life magazine.
Now I used to work
in my bag. Right.
I used to work in a news agency when I was in university. Was my job. My uni job was working in a news agency.
I always like to work in a news agency.
Yeah, it was all right.
Magazines for some reason. And
yeah, you get. I think I brought this up before. We get a lot of magazines that didn't sell. Like I get to take home a lot of them and stuff. Like some that they would just send the tops back and then just chuck them out, and then your premium ones they'd send back.
That's right. You'd cut the cover off to send back to prove that it didn't sell, right?
Yeah, because then you can't sell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so there was always a bit of That's Life on there. So give the listeners what's That's Life all about.
Oh God, well, it's being they call it a lifestyle magazine, right? It's one of those magazines that your grandmother always had. It's I just realized it's a little bit like porno. They buy it and they say, "Oh no, I only bought it for the puzzles, not for the stories." Like but because the stories are just all batshit, and the way they're written as well are just
yeah. So it's sort of like my husband left me for my daughter or my stepdaughter or my.
You know what I'm going to do on your podcast? I'm going to put a call out. I'm trying to find a story that I saw the cover of because it is a weekly magazine, they circulate very quickly. So I missed this one. This is actually a take 5 one. So we are going to eventually cover some other magazines, but because I have a subscription to That's Life,
yeah,
I guess that's like me.
Put the age in. You've gone, what?
I promise I only bought it for the puzzles. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, some cracking puzzles.
But now it's just like, oh my God, there's just too much here. I have to share it. Like, so it's, but I'm trying to find this one article I don't know why I didn't pick it up at the time, but it was called My Dead Dad Came Back as a Durry. So if any international listeners, that's what a cigarette is. Came back as a durry, and I cannot for the life of me find it. I tried to look through their archives. I tried to see if I could buy the back issue. They don't do back issues of Take 5. They do That's Life, though. I know too much about this. Anyway, the podcast's called What's Life. Leave it there. It's weekly. So it comes out every Friday.
Well, I was just thinking about that magazine when I knew you were coming on. I'm just going, geez, you could run that magazine in the Star Wars universe pretty well.
Oh yeah. Oh, you could.
I kissed my sister.
That sounds like it's pretty much like the ETV HoloNet. Like,
yeah.
Entertainment.
So you could have a lot of stuff that happens in Star Wars. You could have my dad cut off my hand.
Yes. I would love for one of your Photoshop listeners to dummy up a magazine cover of That's Life in Star Wars. And there's the call out.
I saw my dad came back as a ghost.
Yeah.
But he was young. First I saw him, he was old. Then I saw him again and he was young. It doesn't make any sense. I got frozen for 3 years and now I'm blind. Then I could see again.
I had a crazy party with Ewoks and you'll never guess what happened. Like, oh my God.
I partied with teddy bears. My boss shoots lightning out of his fingers.
I went undercover into Jabba's palace. You'll never guess what happens in there.
Oh man, could you imagine? Do they all sleep in the same room at Jabba's palace?
Yeah.
Do they all have bedrooms and things? Have you played Battlefront?
That has always weirded me out. I've hated that.
Because it's when they all Han, I think I brought this up recently, Han, he's frozen, Leia busts him out. And, then they hear like, ho, ho, ho. And he's like, oh, John. They just pull the curtain and they're all just like hiding behind the curtain. I'm like, is that where they all just normally sleep? Because they're all kind of sort of pretending to be asleep, because before she comes down and Jabba's just like, oh, I'm just asleep,
Yeah.
So is it just sort of par for the course. Everybody just parties so much until they just pass out. Like they don't. Like someone
Yeah.
opened a window in there.
Well, I guess we never know what happened at the end of the party. Who knows? That might have devolved into an orgy. We don't know.
Yeah, that's right. The Leia's like, I
No
gotta get out of here,
idea.
man.
We have no
Can't
idea.
Lando's just like, all right,
Yeah.
being undercover ain't so bad.
Of course, Lando was the one who was still there. Yeah, of course. Of course.
They're like, what do you reckon, Lando? Safe to come in and rescue Han? You're like, not too sure yet. Maybe give it a few more weeks here. Yeah. Haven't quite worked my way through everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Haven't worked my way through the band yet.
I don't want to know what Salacious Crumb's role in all this was.
Oh man, he's like the hype man, isn't he? He's like the Flavor Flav to
but who knows?
Jabba's.
He could have been the gerbil. Who knows? This is evolving into something we should go. Yeah.
There's just Salacious Crumb just propping up a bar going, you think you've got it bad.
Yeah.
You know, I got to sit there and laugh all the time. And then if I don't, I get shoved up Jabba's ass.
And he just does the Flintstones. It's a living.
It's a living. Wah, wah. So that's not exactly what we were going to talk about. The reason you came on was no, I don't really like. This podcast is really just about talking to friends, talking about Star Wars, things we like. I don't sort of tend to comment on, you know, fan behavior or bad fan behavior or anything like that, unless it's somebody who's had an experience who wants to bring it up and stuff. And unfortunately, sort of more of the female fans that we've had on here have had experiences and stuff. I'm always encouraging people to talk about that because it's interesting and important and stuff. But sort of the general bad behavior of fans and things isn't stuff that we really talk about. But last week there was a I don't even know really whether to sort of bring up his name and stuff, but everybody just knows who it is. There was quite a prominent fellow online who sort of spent the last year or so ragging out The Last Jedi and basically going at people and you know, trolling and all this sort of not very nice behavior, and I sort of read his article and read his blog post and then and tweeted about it, which got an attraction, just sort of saying that, you know, summing it up, going, I, you know, used to hate something, now I don't hate it so much, but, you know, you guys all suck and you're the reason that I still suck, and it was something related to that. And you just sent me a message. You sort of dipped in and out of this thing, and you sent me a message going, dude, what's going on? Like, what is this? What is this?
What did I miss?
What are people going on about? You know, so it sort of took the fandom by storm and did sort of bring up a lot of interesting questions about, you know, can people change and redemption and all that kind of stuff. But before we sort of get to that, you were just like, dude, I got to read this article.
Yeah, I think it's because it was something you just said as well. Was that for a little while I kind of dipped out of the fandom as well because of that toxicity. It really kind of got to me. Especially because, you know, being the age I am, my love for Star Wars is really hit a fever pitch because of the hype around the new stuff, and since you know, since the lead up to Force Awakens and stuff. I was always a huge fan, but it sent me to a fever pitch because a lot of other people were, and that really made me excited that I could experience it with more people than I could before, and that made me really excited. So
but I guess
I could share it with people more, you know?
Yeah. So I guess the problem with that is that if you've got more people at a fever level, you know, people take fever in different ways and excitement in different ways, and there's more people, so it's less, you know, the chances of some people dealing or doing things certain ways is more likely because it's just this, you know, because Star Wars fandom kind of just plodded along post prequels, and the people, you know, people kind of enjoyed it, but then that was sort of it. And then when something comes back, everyone's like, oh my God, it's back. And then it starts to mean something again, or mean something new.
Definitely. Yeah. So I guess that's why I missed this as well. This whole article. So,
yeah. Well, I don't, the Twitter account for this podcast follows pretty much exclusively Star Wars people.
Yeah.
But I don't, to be honest, check it that often. I just use it to promote, really, and, you know, and occasionally dip in and out on things. But, you know, really my personal Twitter account, I follow some Star Wars people, but it's really just the immediate people that I know.
Yes.
And I interact with, and then, you know, probably through mostly the Steel Wars crew, and then the people I know through that and the podcasters and stuff. So usually, unless it's something really big or a lot of people are going on about it, a lot of the little stuff just sort of drifts through, you know. So I don't really see stacks of the toxicity stuff because I don't follow that many Star Wars people.
Yeah.
Certainly not people who engage like that on my personal stuff. So
yeah.
So it didn't. So when this one actually kind of popped up on my regular feed, I'm like, oh, okay, this is obviously something noteworthy, I suppose, or at least checking in on.
Yeah. So yeah, there's something about the way it's written as well that is like it does kind of open up like a story too. So as I mentioned to you, it's like I went in and I was just like F this guy, totally screw him. Like I can't stand this guy. Like he's acting like he deserves something. He's very much like an us versus them. And then once it goes back on him, he finds it like he gets offended by it. And that was something that really irked me. Like I even saw like, and it's like, if you're going to engage in that way, in that trolling kind of behavior, then you have to expect like people who are like enjoying this thing that should be pure and just for excitement. Like, and it's not real. Like it's not a real thing. So he talks about escapism, like, and it's all very selfish, very, very selfish. Which is something that really got to me a little bit. And a lot of the way he talks about his personal life a lot in it as well, which was like almost like for sympathy.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because obviously it does happen, and it obviously has affected the way he is to a point. But at the same time, it's still a space movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, does it mean that... Because unless you're taking that baggage with you everywhere and everything that you do, you can't really fall back on it. If you know what I mean? Like, if you're at work and you're treating people that you work with the same way because you're having troubles in your personal life, and if it's affecting all the things that you're doing, rather than going, well, now that I can channel this or be this way about a certain thing, and it's because this thing's happening to me, but really it's only when I engage on this particular topic.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know enough about the dude to make comments about that, but you the thing that it's
sorry, I kind of barreled into that a little bit. I apologize.
No. It's good. It's good. It's the thing. Like, you don't really need to. That's why I was kind of like, well, how much do you talk about the man? How much do you talk about the idea that it's, just the idea of somebody who originally, at least it looks like, goes, hey, I've been doing something a certain way, and now I've kind of reflected, and I'm a bit sorry. But it sort of seems to be that it's more driven that his acceptance of a character rather than his own behavior.
Yeah, and because of that, he almost believes that like that's absolved him of all the trolling he's done, especially especially the way that a lot of people have reacted, like, or seem to have reacted to him. The way that he says it is that he like seemed to have hurt some people as well. Like he really got some people riled up and angry and upset. Like I have to give him credit. Like at the bottom, he does like apologize to some people and like singles those people out. So I got to give credit where credit's due, And I just found it super interesting the way that a fan like this deals with that, like especially being so in love with it and then acting like The Last Jedi was literally giving them giving them the bird.
The start of it's quite interesting because he basically sort of says at the start of the thing, kind of going, well, kind of just basically ragging on Lucas, the typical, ragging on Lucasfilm, ragging on Disney, ragging on how they hate everybody and how they're going, they're laughing at us, they think that we're a joke and all this kind of stuff like that, and it's a very just like if I believe in something so strongly, I've got to frame every reality to support that belief.
Yeah.
So. People can't take a joke, and it's like Steele's sticker a little bit,
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
if you
definitely.
can't
I was
understand the
thinking
funny
that
side of it,
yeah,
if you can't understand the funny side of it, and Steele's always kind of just gone, well, it's laughing at all of us that we take this
yeah,
silly thing so
yeah,
seriously,
yeah,
and whereas people with an axe to grind go, look, they're laughing at you, they don't care, they think you're
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think like yeah, obviously I don't want to go too much into the personal life. You can read it yourself. It's right there. So I'm not going to go into it deeply or anything like that. But yeah, it's even in his personal life, not to mention just Star Wars, but in his personal life, it's almost like he's acting like he's entitled to something. Like, this is my Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. And then everybody laugh and be like, haha, well, it's not for you anymore, sucked in, that kind of thing. Like, and that's how he's kind of taking it when it's not like that. It's just you have to
Yeah,
take it for what it is. And I
that's
don't think
right.
he is. Like, and for it to be affecting him that much, like even actively affecting his personal life.
Yeah,
Like for it to affect you that much, it's just like see, I now kind of look at this as like a bit of just a case study into somebody who loves Star Wars this much. You know
yeah,
what I
and
mean?
maybe needs to sort of get some perspective, I suppose.
Yeah,
And the problem is, like, it's very easy to sit here and you go, oh, the guy's too focused on one thing, and he's not,
totally,
but it's kind of
totally.
like, well, this is all we're seeing, like, dude,
Yeah.
like, we can't all we can get perspective of is what you present as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
and you can't get mad if you don't like the perception, if that's all you're offering,
Yeah.
basically. Like, if you're basically dedicating this online presence, whether it's the only one that you use or this is the one that you use to vent your frustrations about, if that's all it is,
Yeah.
then that's all it is.
I mean,
So
and that was the thing. He started his Twitter account the night he got back from seeing The Last Jedi because that was where he wanted to vent his frustrations, and that's
yeah.
and that's the only place that he did it, and it's the only thing he talked about.
um
So yeah, it's very interesting. I like that's why I'm fascinated by this. It set off so many like not alarm bells, but like just like I'd be fascinated to sit down and talk to this guy. Like really fascinated too.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
When he starts going on about Ghostbusters, that I'm just going like, oh dear.
Oh wow, wow. Oh, after
Yeah.
the Ghostbusters bit, and then he goes, "Oh my God, I regret saying future. Don't you dare reboot Back to the Future. Keep something sacred." It's just like, oh wow, wow. Like where's the line for you?
Yeah, but it also seems a very, very common thread, and this is also a very common thread in a lot of this toxic stuff that I see, is that the rationalization for the behavior is always coming from when somebody who's involved, whether it's a creator or an actor or somebody like that, basically pushes back against all the stuff that's come before.
Yes, yes,
So as
yeah,
almost just like, well, because he talks about like the Ghostbusters things, just like, well, in the promotions they were saying that there are some toxic, they're toxic fans, and they're saying that all the men are toxic. It's like, well, no, we're saying there's toxic fans because people
yeah.
came at us. We didn't basically go out and say, hey, before we even announce what this Ghostbusters movie is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he used that as an argument, like as why you should like cater to fickle fandom. Like, and it's like that's not a reason though, like why you should do it. Like, why is that a thing? And then and if you read some of those Sony emails as well, some of the things that Paul Feig said were just like fuck the fan and blah. Like that was done for the wrong reasons as well. I think that movie, like that cast is
Yeah.
so good, and it was just everything that was wrong with it was all because of Paul Feig. I think. Like that's the
Yeah,
other.
it's a shame, isn't it? I mean, they've announced they're doing another Ghostbusters,
Yeah,
and
and that
well, people are like, "Yeah, finally, new Ghostbusters, let's go!"
that
And it's going
blew.
to be in the same universe. And then they've gone, "Oh, it's going to be about teenagers,"
Yeah.
and people are like, "Boo! You
Yeah.
ruined it
They're
again."
going for it because it's Stranger Things and it. Like it's like that stuff has been is good right now. Like using kids
Yep,
for that stuff. Like it'll be like
yep,
I saw that first Jack Black Goosebumps movie. God, that was great. Such a fun movie. But like if it was Ghostbusters like ramped up to that level, it's like yeah, that sounds good. But I'm not going to judge it until it's out. Obviously, I'll definitely judge the reasonings why they're making it. But I'm not
yep.
going to judge the movie till it's out. Like
No, exactly.
yeah, I thought it was fascinating as well, like the way that he tried to quantify money as to how they react on social media, like with the
Yep.
Aquaman thing. Did he
Yeah.
mention?
Now the Aquaman one's interesting because he starts to sort of get really. He gets sort of going because he talks about James Wan, who's actually Australian.
Yeah,
That when the movie came out, there were some
that's
people
off
who
to
didn't
James
like it.
Wan.
That's when James, oh, the Western Bulldogs caps come off. So
Yep, yep.
Aquaman, I haven't actually seen Aquaman yet. I don't know if you've seen it or
I
not.
haven't. I'm curious too, but like
I'd like
generally,
to see it. I just
yeah.
haven't got around to it.
Unless it's something that I'm really, really need to see, then I generally don't see many films at the movies anyway. So
Yeah,
I'll probably pass on that until it's out.
too much live comedy to see, mate.
What's that?
Too much live comedy to see.
That's true. That's true. And there's so many like Marvel movies that it's like, oh yeah, I want to see that. I don't want that spoiled for me, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like
get there.
and stuff that I'm just like like can't wait for chapter 2, man. So excited. And I just saw Glass last night as well. That was real good.
Now, is that any good or not? I've heard
I
differing
really
things.
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed where it was going. Um, but a lot of it seemed very crammed in, very kind of crowbarred in,
Yep.
and very
Okay.
much like comic books are this and villains are this, and like and
Okay.
that felt very like wedged in. But I really liked how the movie went though. I really liked the
Okay.
plot and stuff. I liked it. Yeah,
I'll get there. I'll get to
yeah,
it. I'll get
yeah.
to it.
It's a good.
But just in regards to Aquaman, so basically,
Yeah,
some people really loved it, and some people didn't like it, and they might have just gone, "Oh, Kevin Aquaman, that wasn't that great."
mm,
And some people decided to get on social media and tell them what they thought of it.
yeah,
And basically, James Wan just said, "Hey, it's come to my attention. People are harassing some people. Like, let's be cool. Like, don't do that. If you didn't like it, fine, that's great. And if you did like it, great. But don't go after anybody, who's going after them. Blah blah." So he kind of used this. He kind of went. This is what This is what Ryan Johnson should have done. You
yeah,
know, and
yeah. Was said that like is it is
but
it's
I
like
think that James
it's like
Wan's only done it because of.
they made $1 billion. Like that's not the reason why it made $1 billion. Like that doesn't make sense. You can't say that plus you can't place say play 2 + 2 = 5. That's pretty much what he's saying. You know what I mean? Like those
Yeah.
that doesn't add up. Like
But the reason Great James Wan's come out and preemptively done that is because of the last things that have happened with fandom post The Last Jedi.
it's like mate, you were the reason why he wrote that tweet.
Yeah, that's right. Like Ryan Johnson, like a year ago, people were just going, "Great, can't wait to see episode 8." Like, could you imagine if opening night episode like Last Jedi comes out and the first thing Ryan Johnson tweets is like, "Hey everybody, don't go abusing each other online if you don't like this movie. Let's all be cool." You're like, "What? What the hell is he talking about? Like, who's going to abuse people because of The Last Jedi?"
Yeah, he's saying that as if that was like part of their marketing strategy or something for him to put that tweet out. Like it's like he doesn't have that many followers. It's not like that's like a huge. It just that makes no sense to me, and that really stuck out to me as just what are you trying to like? You're really trying to quantify something that isn't there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I guess that's all like in his reasoning for why he didn't like it, and the way that it moves on from there, like the entire article is just I guess it is his kind of redemption story in a lot of ways, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So he basically says to himself he's one of the relentless, calculated, sometimes vicious haters of The Last Jedi on Twitter. And it calls it his pastime as well.
yeah. You
Which
need
is,
a hobby, man. You need a better hobby.
yeah, you need a bit of a better hobby. So you said that you've sort of done your notes. Have you basically kind of worked your way through point by point, or have you just sort of done a general
Yeah,
reading?
I
You've done all the homework here, mate. So
yeah, I have done quite an extensive notes, but like after talking to you, like I just like a lot of it is like quite, I guess, angry because he was being a dick, and
yes,
even when he talks about his personal life, it's just like and his escapism and things like that. Especially the escapism, that word really stuck out to me because like a lot of people use like escapism is a positive, and if The Last Jedi didn't do it for you, then why are you staying in that negative sphere? You're not escaping anymore. Like you're really going into something that's into a part of your into a part of your psyche that is just like that might as well be like drinking like excessively.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
trolling is it's like an addiction. Like
yeah,
and the way that he talks about it is the same way. Like it's and it's, again I won't go into his personal stuff, but it's if you read it, you'll just be like, well, it sounds like you are externalizing absolutely everything that's wrong in your life.
yeah. I mean, it's funny because he says, like, because he talks about like when he got into Star Wars, he was 5. He's 40. He has 2 children. Like that's me. I'm exactly the same as that. That
I
could
was
be
thinking
me.
the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
And so I can certainly relate on that level. And I've gone the journey. I saw Return of the Jedi in the cinema. I was there midnight for all the prequels. I've been there for Force Awakens and stuff. And Star Wars has been a big thing as well. And I don't know. I always find the term escapism kind of strange, really, because I don't. I always enjoy something. I never feel like I need to escape. When you say that you need to escape from something, that always kind of concerns me a little bit. I always
Yeah,
find this because escape feels like you need to get away, or you need to disconnect from reality a little bit.
yeah,
I don't know. Like I guess it can be romanticized, the term escapism,
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
but I think that term needs context when you start talking about it.
yeah.
Um,
I guess it can be a very broad and general term also. Um,
yep,
it's like I can definitely say that I was like an escapist, like
yep,
in like, my late teens, early 20s, trying to just jump into something just so I can disconnect a little bit and then like kind of come back out and like come back into reality and then have a bit more perspective. Like I
yep,
feel like that's what escapism has been or is to me. If I like, like it's like putting an album on and just wanting to just that's all you want to listen to and just like close your eyes and just listen to that. Just like a way out for a little bit. It's kind of like a lot of musicians, like if they're sitting on the or writers, they'll write a bunch, then they'll step away, and then they'll come back and reread it and just be like, oh, that's actually really bad, or it's like, oh, I could just touch this up a little bit. It's like it's your way to have a broader perspective because sometimes, especially as a teenager with the puberty and the hormones raging, sometimes everything's just too much and you're too inside your own head. So just like
yep.
just stepping away for an hour and a half or something, and then going back into life and thinking about it, it's a lot easier. So like I can understand exactly where this guy's coming from in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Well, it all happens. Like he goes into detail. You see, we don't go into the minor details of his personal life, but basically, the worst period of his personal life he seems to be going through, and it
That's
seems like the one thing that he's got going for him is that this new Star Wars movie is coming out.
Yeah, it's
So,
I think he feels a lot like I think he has a lot of abandonment issues, this guy as well, just from reading what's there. Um,
yep,
and it's almost like now Last Jedi comes out and it's like, oh thanks, now Star Wars has abandoned me too. Like
yep,
that's fair. Like I kind of get that. Maybe not
yep,
maybe fair's not the right word, but like I
yep.
get that. I can get that,
And I can say the things to a movie or fans of a movie or people who made the movie. I can say these things to them online that I can't say about other things that have disappointed me, or
Yes.
other things that I'm angry about.
Yeah.
I can't talk that way because I would be, hauled off, or I would just, forever destroy relationships. But
Yeah.
I can go after people whose relationships I don't actually have, but they have a connection to this thing. Well, this connection to this thing enough where, I might get to them and I might hurt their feelings a little bit, and that will make me feel better
Yeah.
because I don't feel that great.
Yes.
And I'm not saying like lots of people didn't like the Last Jedi. Lots of people loved the Last Jedi. Now I've got a cousin, my cousin Glyn, in an early episode. He got me into Star Wars. He got most of the people in my family into Star Wars, and he's a lifelong fan. And he didn't like the Last Jedi, and he was really bummed out with it. But he just, he just was like, no, it just didn't work for me. I just, and I felt let down, and I haven't been back. And then I saw him at Christmas, and I was going to try and get him on the podcast, but my famous cousin was there, and I'm like, I'll get you on first, dude. And I don't see him as other. You know, he lives in Sydney. I'll get you on first, and then if I get around to Glenn, I'll get to him. But we chatted a little bit. Sorry?
How old's he? A little bit older than you, or?
Glenn, yeah, he's probably 3 years older than me, 3 years older.
Yep. So
yeah. He's right in that demographic. Yeah. And he was a bit like, he just was kind of like, I haven't gone back yet. But, and we talked about episode 9. He's like, oh yeah, no, episode 9, I'll be there. Like, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm there. It's just like, I just haven't gone back yet. And, you know, I'll get to it. And I've got other stuff going on. And, you know, like, he was obviously, I was surprised he hadn't gone back, to be honest.
Yeah.
I thought he'd probably sit down and watch it, and because he was a bit like at the time going, oh, you know, I've got them all on the shelf. I can't just not have the one on the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, what's that? And you know, so I think he'll come back to it. And I think, to be honest, what'll probably happen is that he'll go to episode 9, and then, you know, if episode 9 satisfies, he'll go back.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
well, I don't know what he's called, but I call him my cousin. I've never bothered looking into like what he actually is.
the family tree.
Yeah, or just what the name of it is. I just can't be bothered. But he got me into Star Wars, like, along with, because he, whatever the other cousin was a couple of years younger than me, and he's nearly 50. Just a little over 50. And for him, he saw The Last Jedi, hated it, then went back and saw it again about 3 months later. When I saw him at Christmas time, he was like, because I saw him that first Christmas, and he was like, nah, hated it. And saw him again the year after, and he was like, yeah, actually, after I saw Solo, he's like, I might rewatch Last Jedi, and then was just like, yeah, no, it's actually not bad. It's not bad. Like, so he went from hating it to going, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. Like, but he was like, nah, did not like it one bit. Then was like, yeah, cool. It's a fine Star Wars movie, you know?
Yeah.
So like, for him to change his mind as well, because he's usually pretty stubborn on stuff.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting. Yeah, so he I was glad that he changed his mind, I must admit.
Yeah, it's nice though. Like, I don't.
Yeah, it's nice.
I didn't feel like I could have easily have sat, you know, with Glenn and been like, yeah, but what about this?
Yeah.
And what about this? And, you know, this is why this is, and this is why this is, and it's just like, well, you'll get there. You either get there or you won't get there.
Yeah.
But I didn't seem like. It didn't seem to be that he was disappointed with, like, a lot of this fellow on the blog it seems to be centered around Luke.
Yes.
And why Luke is the way that he is.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is about it is that Rian Johnson didn't put Luke on that island.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson didn't say that he'd walked away and he felt responsible. That was all in The Force Awakens. Like, there's literal scenes where Han goes, you know, Luke started Jedi Academy, it fell to bits, he felt responsible, he just gave up, he just walked away, you know. And when Han, you know, because Han goes, they go, oh, you know, you're the other Han Solo who knew him, you know, and Han goes, yeah, I knew him, I knew Luke. Like, he's got disdain in his voice that basically he's kind of like, yeah, I knew Luke, like, we were friends once, and he kind of, I always find it very strange that JJ gets a pass.
Yeah, and and I think it was also because he said that, like, he mentioned like subversion of expectations. That's kind of like what you're talking about. Like, it's like he's like, I didn't watch any trailers, didn't watch anything leading up to it, but he loved The Force Awakens. But it's like, well, there's expectations that are already set if you've seen the other movies. So you can't, just because you've gone around trailers and stuff, doesn't mean that your expectations are any different. You know what I mean?
Especially when you have a film that takes place the next day or right at that moment.
Yes. Yeah. It has.
Yeah, and that was always the big thing. Like, I know that he says it's not about subverting expectations or whatever, but, you know, for a lot of people, because it takes place so close, they're just like, well, it's the only way that it could go, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to be just like Empire Strikes Back, and then basically you're going to do these things, and you know, I've always sort of talked, when we talked about Luke, you know, you always, especially the Luke as portrayed here, Jedi Master Luke, it's kind of like putting Superman in. Like, you can't. He's too hard to deal with on screen, this powerful, and it's ultimately it's not his story. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like, I think that's and then for him to, like, as you said, kind of look at Luke and look at his story as if that was him, like, and what had happened to him, like, in the way that he, you know, given a lot of stuff up and things like that, and, you know, had felt like that about Star Wars. It's almost like he like gives himself a complex at the end, almost like he's absolved of his sins because he realizes that he's just like Luke. Like,
Yeah, that's an interesting one that he sort of works his way through to. He kind of frames it in what a Jedi would do and how a Jedi would behave.
yeah,
And there's a bit of that, but there's also I think it's a lot of it's very human. It's also like not necessarily what a Jedi is, what a human would do
yeah, yeah,
as well. So I think they kind of the separation is a little bit because I think the Jedi's and the prequels and stuff are all pretty cold people,
yeah,
to a degree,
yeah,
and Luke is definitely a lot more emotional. Being older and he acts on his instincts more and he's untrained and stuff.
yeah,
So,
more brash.
he does sort of, he kind of finds that peace to a point, but, he's still human. The human side, the emotions in the human side and the shame and stuff is because it's basically like, a lot of the Jedis in the prequels do all sorts of stupid mistakes and stuff, and they kind of just live with it and roll with it because they're kind of infallible.
Yeah.
And Luke kind of goes, well, that's the problem with them. They were so bloody arrogant.
Yeah.
That they didn't suffer for their consequences and everything went bad. Like, I'm going to suffer for my consequences.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to try and make the world a better place by taking myself out of the fight. So, yeah, I think that this guy kind of framing it around the Jedi stuff. Yeah, I think it's more of a human failing. I think a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like as I said before, he's very good at externalizing and being like, well, it's kind of not my fault, and it's exactly like what anybody else would do. Like, it's like, well, yeah, kind of. Like,
yeah,
it is kind of that simple. But like for you to make it to be like, oh, it's like me and Luke, just makes me feel a bit strange at the end.
Yeah,
it is, but
yeah.
I do see where he's going, and like, and I almost like I kind of feel I both feel sorry for him and kind of admire him a little bit.
Oh, look, let's not beat around the bush. Like, it's still, it's hard, isn't it? Because it takes guts to write something like this and to admit that you want to do better, and that even if the framing is weird and you're not really completely absolving, admitting full guilt or taking responsibility, but to do that, because there's a lot of, when this sort of came out, some people were like, oh, well done, mate, like, you're really good on you for doing this. And I think some people who he'd sort of gone after particularly, went, good on you. And I think maybe even Ryan Johnson might have even chimed in and just said,
oh, really? Okay.
Good on you, good start kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then there are other people going like, nah, dog, you don't get to just say, kind of say you're sorry.
Yeah.
And then wash your hands of your behavior. Like, you've got to pay your penance,
Definitely.
If you want to really be like Luke, you've got to get out there and you've got to suffer for a bit. I know you already thought you've suffered, but you've got to, there's a road to redemption,
Yeah.
And again, at the same time, it's the internet. So it's just some dude on the internet who really cares.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
If you're trying to make a big deal about how you've come to a realization, I think you have to accept that not everybody's just going to be like, woo, and, throw you a party. And
yeah. I guess at the end of the day, this is also like, it's very much a microcosm of the internet too, of the fandom,
Yes.
So it's just very, very interesting to be able to get an insight into it. And I think he's just, it's that process as well of turning around and changing. Like, it's, I guess I say this is a microcosm of the fandom, but it's also a bigger part of the greater internet too, of trolling and rights for people and treating other people with respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I read something on Facebook today that my friend shared, that she was walking out of a 7-Eleven and a ute came past, and a guy yelled out like, something obscene to her about, wanting to do the horizontal.
Show us your, yeah.
Something like that. And a tradie just like piffed absolutely just pegged his chocolate milk, went into the guy's window, and like, as the guy was driving off from the lights, and just
he copped it with a big M.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And was just like, idiot. And she goes, oh my God, thank you for that. And he goes, and obviously complimented his aim.
Yeah.
But then he just said, oh, no worries. I used to be like that. I hope that's a wake up call for him. kind of thing. So it's almost like this with this guy. Like I hope this is a wake up call for him, and he does change and actually practice what he preaches as well. Like that will be what we see in the end. You know, whether he actually practices what he says he's going to do, and like But you know, as you said, that if it was Ryan who said that, good on him for starting.
Well, he's
really
important. Yeah, and I think Paul. I shouldn't feel sorry for Ryan Johnson. He's a grown up, and I'm sure he doesn't need our pity and stuff. But he's constantly ridden this high road with absolute class.
Yes.
And again, he could have just been like, he could have just ignored it.
Yeah.
But I think that just sort of shows the class of the guy, really. Now,
yeah.
the most telling part of this whole story for me, again, we wouldn't want to go into too much about the personal life stuff, but there is a bit where he basically gets back in touch with the wife, with the ex-wife or the wife and stuff.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going this way.
If we're going to, well, I wasn't going to, but I'm just kind of like, you know what? Like, let's, it is a little of a microcosm that he basically says, he gets back in touch with her and has something important to tell her. And
oh wow,
she's like, what is it?
And I'm kind of cringing right here.
And basically, he just says, like, I don't hate The Last Jedi anymore. In fact, I don't mind it. And she just goes, I thought you were going to tell me something important.
Yes.
And it really does give you an idea where obviously something's happened in the relationship.
Yeah.
And because he does actually say, oh, she left and I don't even know why she did it.
Yeah. He said he's well, not quite exact words, I'm paraphrasing here, but he goes, through no fault of my own, though I still don't really understand it. It's like, if you don't understand it, it might have been your fault then. You know what I mean? Like there's a to and fro there.
Because just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not your fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then the fact that he gets in touch and she's just like, oh, you're still like grinding your gears about this movie. Like, we had a life and, I thought we could work towards something here. And then he kind of puts his little denouement on the end where it's just like, well, I'm glad that you've found peace on that. And that's supposed to be like, well, I did it, I got to her. But it's just like, she's just like, well, I guess if that's what's important to you, I'm glad that you're not so mad about it.
Yeah.
Maybe apply the same amount of thinking to other things going on. But again, it's his life. I can't, but it's just telling. There are a lot of those sort of telling things in there where you kind of, because grown-up relationships, communication is key, really. And, if this is the thing that you feel is the most important thing that you need to say to someone that relationship is soured with, it's a little bit, yeah.
It's
and
a little sad, isn't it? Like, I mean,
there's a little sad bit
in
where
the sense that, like, I do feel bad for the guy, like, for what he's been feeling, I wish he hadn't taken it out on people, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that when he sort of tells his son, like, what doesn't daddy like? And his son's like, The Last Jedi. I was like, oh, dude, like.
And he's like, oh, yeah. And he says, like, we never wanted to teach our little boy to hate or have a sense or even get a sense of what it is to hate. It's like, what have you been exuding about The Last Jedi then? This kid knows exactly what it is that you don't like. Like, hate or even get a sense of it. It's like, well, saying that you don't like it, that's kind of a start.
Yeah, that's a little bit. Yeah,
it's
a little bit.
Those bits very much weirded me out. Like, it's like you're trying to use these personal stories as a reason why, and it's kind of just it's making you dig a bigger hole, personality wise. Maybe not fandom wise, but personality wise. You kind of
but your personality affects affect all the things that you interact with as well. Like that, that's. There's plenty of stuff that I don't like, but I don't think I've ever. I know I've never disliked something enough to get worked up about it or send an angry letter or do anything. I've certainly been, disappointed with stuff, and I've kind of like. Have you ever seen the show Red Dwarf?
Yes.
So Red Dwarf was my favorite show growing up. It's probably still one of my favorite shows, and it finished sort of in the mid-90s. And then when I was living in England. One of the pay TV channels there, or one of the channels was like, we've got the rights to Red Dwarf. We're going to do a Red Dwarf special where the gang are back. The Red Dwarf's back, and I was like, yes, I'll be up for more Red Dwarf.
Yep.
And they did the special, and it was bloody awful. And it was really the one of the things that I hate the most. Like, now I'm saying hate. One of the things I dislike the most in some, especially in some sci-fi or in stories and stuff, where basically the characters find themselves in their own story, where they're like, we don't exist. We're inside a television show called Red Dwarf.
Yeah, like the self-awareness of it. Yeah,
The self-awareness stuff, and I always find that really, really lazy. And I remember watching that, going like, "Oh God, this sucked." Like, that's what a bummer. Like, what a bummer that's the way it ended, because they, everybody was back, and from a performance standpoint, it was quite good, and everything. It looked really good, and I just remember being really bummed about it. And then I went, "Oh well, I'll just go back and watch the original episodes. It doesn't really matter anymore."
It's always there.
And then they went and made new ones anyway, and the new ones got better. So
yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's what he's talking about, escapism. It's like, well, if you didn't want to fix your escapism, just keep watching the OT. Like, just go back to it. It's fine. You're allowed to. Like, and you liked Force Awakens, just leave it at that. That's fine. Like,
and you got a new Star Wars movie, and I don't think, does he mention if he goes and sees Solo? I don't think I've even.
I don't think he mentioned it. I don't think he mentioned it at all. Not at all. I don't think he did at all. I didn't even think about that, actually.
I just suppose it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Have you got anything in the old notebook before we?
No, I think that's about it. I guess I guess I just want to be sure that if he ever hears this, hope he's well, and I hope anything too personally.
No, well, we're really just, like I said, we don't know the guy. We're just reading off the thing. It's just an interesting microcosm. And like I said, I don't like to get caught up on fan behavior, good, bad. I like getting caught up in good fan behavior all the time. I love when people love stuff. Bad stuff I tend to just ignore or walk. But this one was just quite interesting. And I think it kind of both piqued our interests.
Yeah.
Although the funny thing is, I did stop in on his Twitter page just to sort of check in. And there's a lot of sort of tweeting of retweets of people who are just kind of like, well done. This was hard, but good on you for doing it and stuff like that as well. But in of those, there are a few lists like, well, just before that, going like, Star Wars toys on a shelf, they ruined the fandom. Look at these, look, there's a Hux, a Rose, and a Rose's sister. This is what Star Wars has become. Blah blah blah. And
so it's still going in on part.
Well, this was on the 14th of Jan. So this might have been just before the post came out, actually. So I don't want to comment too much because I'll just have a bit of a deep scroll.
Yeah.
But he flipped the script pretty quick.
Yeah, I did. I did have a look at some of his YouTube videos, and they were like almost trying to be like edgelordy kind of meme stuff, and
okay,
and that don't really express his opinion in any outward way. Well, sorry, they do, but they're only very specific ones. Very, very specific. And like none of them are very interesting.
Yep.
But yeah, like a lot of them are, like there's one of Luke talking at Celebration about episode 8, and there's like a lot of zoom ins and a lot of like replaying that like 3-second clip like in slow motion and stuff, and like
Mark Hamill just like, but at the time I didn't know what to think of it, you know, and they're just like, he hates it,
pretty much that stuff. And then like editing in,
I've been working on my Mark Hamill impression.
but then editing in like things of like people like walking out of the crowd and stuff like, it's like so I hope that he's flipped the switch.
Well, there's a few little tweets of people going like, "Oh, hey, you really maybe like reassess The Last Jedi and stuff." And I'm kind of like, well, there's billions of positive Star Wars fans out there who've talked about the things that they like, that have the exact, have came to the conclusions that he did a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I guess the only redeeming thing is that if you're only following for The Last Jedi hate and you're not engaging with the positive side, that maybe you can find a positive path through this. Like, oh, actually, this dude whose opinion I respected because he hated the same thing I hated. Now he's sort of come around,
which I cannot fault one little bit. Cannot fault that one little bit. Yeah.
But so let's hopefully the dude finds some peace and he's not gone back on the the trolling, just like
well, he did say that a couple of times, the fact that he's found peace with it, and I'm super happy for him that he has.
But I mean, ultimately, it's just a movie, dude. Like, find your peace and enjoyment in other things. If something's giving you that much grief, you need to channel your energies in other places.
Yeah, he did say he was going to finally watch The Last Jedi with his son, so it's like at least that's also a positive. So
Ah, so his son hasn't even got to see it yet.
It didn't seem like it.
Ah, the kid's just like, man, I would really like to watch that movie.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yeah,
I really like Ray. That'd be great, you know.
That's what it seemed like. Yep.
All right, mate. Well, we'll put a pin on it.
Yep.
But thanks for coming on.
No,
This is sort of a little bit different to what we normally do, but it's good to have the deep chats and stuff like that. Get a smart dude on the end of the line. He's got a few good thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like, I think this is just like, this is what fascinates me about fandom now, is just stories like this, you know?
Yep.
And just kind of the psychological side of the fandom too.
Letting go of something. Like, it's been a year too. Like,
that's
you can be mad about something new later on.
And I think that's the other thing, because there's been so much, like, just on the last point about fandom, like, why I've been feeling like in the last couple of months even just better about Star Wars, because there's not so much of a microscope on as like anymore. We're just kind of like getting excited about Mandalorian casting and things like that, and it's just like
Nolte and Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God, it's gonna be so good. Just to see what happens. Like,
exactly.
That's what happens with Star Wars now. It's like, I just can't wait to see what happens, and then whatever. If I loved it, then awesome. I've got another Star Wars movie. If it was fine, cool. Still got another Star Wars movie.
Got another 50 years of Star Wars movies.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine. If I don't like one, another one around the corner. And there's way more to look back on as well. It's great. So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, new podcast. When's episode 1 dropping?
That is dropping. When's this coming out?
I think it's going to come out tomorrow. I think I might just put it straight up.
Well,
so
it'll be out on Friday. So that's the 25th. 25th, first episode's out, but you can subscribe now on it's on iTunes, Stitcher, all that kind of stuff. Let us know if it's not on something that you listen to. We're on everything that matters at What's Life Pod. It's called What's Life.
Get on it, everybody. Yeah. And I'll put your socials in the notes as usual. You can find us at Star Wars Spelt and everything. If you like Peppa Pig, I do a Peppa Pig podcast as well with Matt Frost. I'll get a thumbs up over here. Wrong demographic, but anyway, good to see that you approve.
Oh, yeah.
And thanks again, mate. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Josh.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.